Kiss. Thank you so much. Hi! Hi from me and Rosie. Welcome to the start of a new video. My name is Peyton. Here to talk about books. All the books. Lots of books. Oh, you got me right in the mouth. I saw Nick over at Books Are Sick do this video, and I thought it'd be really fun for me to do as well, since I have a goal this year to read at least one Stephen King book a month until I get through his entire works. Years-long process probably. If I get to more than one a month, that's awesome. But I'm shooting for just one book I have not read of his a month. I've read about 15 out of his entire works. Favorites so far, I love The Stand. I read The Stand 2 summers ago, and I wish I could erase my brain so I could experience it for the first time all over again. So good. I loved it. But I think Pet Sematary is probably my favorite, and Salem's Lot and Night Shift is my favorite short story collection. There's still a bunch of his works I have not picked up. I actually own quite a few Stephen King books I want to get to this year. I'm going to read them somewhat in order. And the reason I'm reading the first few in order is because you actually have to read them in order. No, it's not Dark Tower. I don't know what it is, but Dark Tower just intimidates me so much. And honestly, I'm gonna have to go back and read them because I don't remember them at all. I remember really liking the second book way more than the first one. The first one was like, what the hell is going on? Anyway, Bill Hodges, Trilogy, and Holly Gibney. So I'm on the last book in the Bill Hodges trilogy that consists of Mr. Mercedes, Finders Keepers, and End of Watch. I'm about to start End of Watch. I loved Mr. Mercedes. I really did. I thought it was awesome. I like the detective noir aspect to it. That's where you get the introduction of Holly Gibney, and I'll talk about that more in a second. And just Mr. Mercedes, Brady was just such a vile character that he came up with. And Finders Keepers, I actually really did enjoy. Here's what I thought. I thought it probably would have been a better standalone book had it been fleshed out a little more and just focus on this another author book-led thriller like Misery. It kind of feels like Bill Hodges was shoehorned into that story because he doesn't show up. Him and Holly don't show up until midway through. I don't know, I just didn't like that they didn't really show up till over halfway through the book, and then it's just over, almost. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, so if you want to skip ahead to the next chapter, go ahead, but End of Watch follows what became of Brady, the Mercedes killer. At the end of Mercedes, Holly Gibney like smashes him over the head before he lets off this bomb at a concert that would have killed hundreds of people and kids. That leaves him in a coma, and he's pretty much in a vegetative state. So at End of Watch, you find out that Brady has developed these psycho-telekinetic abilities that he uses to have people commit suicide. And Holly and Bill and Jerome have to figure out how to stop him. So to get to Holly, the newest release from Stephen King that came out last year, you have to read the Bill Hodges trilogy, The Outsider, If It Bleeds, and then you can read Holly. That's how the order you're supposed to read it. I saw it on TikTok, so hold on, coffee. Yes, I still have a Christmas mug. What of it? But that leads me to the next read I want to pick up is when I'm done with End of Watch, The Outsider. Interesting because this isn't set in Maine, which I thought was really cool, because most of his books have been set in Maine, or at least the ones I really enjoy are set in Maine. So this follows a brutal murder of a young boy in Oklahoma and the arrest of one of its very well-known and well-liked public citizens, Terry Maitland. And everyone is shocked. How could he do it? That's not him at all. It's not the person. That's not the Terry I knew. And people start to wonder, was there a different Terry under all of this? I did watch the first episode, like I think when it was released on HBO, but I never finished it because I wanted to read the book. So I'm very curious. I've heard this is really freaky. So I'm excited. Hi, Mac. Do you want to come up?
You want to say hi?
He's like, I have so much to say about Stephen King. Outsider, I want to read the short story collection If It Bleeds. Apparently there is a very big spoiler for Mr. Mercedes in If It Bleeds, so I'm really glad I watched that TikTok video. I'm really glad I watched that TikTok video. If I find it, I'll link it down below. I thought she gave a really good explanation about how you read the books you need to read before you get to Holly. So that's If It Bleeds. Next, then after that I'll read Holly, which is his newest, is gonna be his, I know he has a book coming out in May, which is a short story collection, You Like It Darker, but before that I want to read Holly, because I didn't get a chance to read it, because again, I wasn't caught up. After Holly, and I've already talked about this book at length in my other video, in my other vlog, so I won't talk about it here. I won't talk about it more here, but I do want to get to Firestarter. I love this copy. I love this copy so much. So now it's on eBay. You can actually find a lot of really good Stephen King editions on eBay. On eBay. Some of them aren't that expensive. So, but also like I found some really good editions at Goodwill or my local bookstore. My local used bookstore has some. Then after that, I would like to read Cujo, and this follows. I've seen part of the movie. I haven't seen the whole thing. But this follows, I think, a mother and son who are trapped inside of a Pinto, and they're being terrorized by this Saint Bernard who has rabies. And this is set in Castle Rock, Maine, which, yes, so I love my edition too of this. This was also an eBay find. Then after that, I think, hopefully by the time I get through this stack, his newest release will be out this year. That is You Like It Darker, his newest short story collection. I think there's 12 unreleased stories. One of them is supposedly a sequel to Cujo. Alright, Steven, how long has that been cooking? Is Cujo the one that he says he has no memory of writing, that he was on a bender and he has no memory of writing this? Is that it? I mean, next book I would love to read, for multiple reasons, on writing. This is one of his nonfiction releases about, I think some of it has to do with his life and his upbringing, but also just him talking about the craft of writing and what goes into that. But I've also heard that even if you're not a writer, if you're any type of creative, that this is a fantastic book to read for that. It's really inspiring. Yeah, I'm just really excited to hear his perspective with his successes and how he came up with a lot of his stories. This has been on my shelf for I don't even know how long, and I don't really have any excuse anymore not to pick it up, because I do want to explore more of my own artistic crafts this year. I always have done something creative, like whether or not it be knitting or painting or drawing, but I just like, I don't know, I love hearing about how and why other people create and what inspires them, so I'm really excited for this one. And next, this is one, I read this, I don't even know how long, I think I read this in high school, like I think I read this when I was a senior in high school, and I've seen the movie quite a few times, but I did want to revisit it because I don't really remember it, and I saw this at Goodwill, and I was like, it's time to read it again. The Green Mile. This is all of the because it came out in little serial novels. I think there's 5 or 6, but they're all in here. This is about a penitentiary and this stretch of cells called the Green Mile, which is their death row that house some of the most sadistic, violent killers. And they have a new prisoner who is this enormous man named John Coffey, very soft-spoken, he's afraid of the dark. Sorry, Mac, he's just lounging. And he is charged with the brutal murder and rape of 2 young girls. And the main warden, who is played by Tom Hanks in the movie, is a little skeptical, because here's this hulking man who's afraid of his own shadow almost, and they start to wonder if he's some different kind of being, and if this is actually the notorious killer that is going to the electric chair soon. This follows like the other wardens in the penitentiary as well as the other prisoners too. I'm really excited to revisit this. If I remember correctly, it made me super emotional to read. And the movie is absolutely fantastic. Is it Frank Darabont? I know The Shawshank Redemption is Frank Darabont. I have to look that up. It's gonna bother me if I don't look it up. It is Frank Darabont. Darabont. I was right. There's a giant chunk of my brain that is just filled with obscure film knowledge. I don't know what to tell you. The next three are fairly bigger books that I want to get to. The thing I like about I love reading big books. I think there's something about just being stuck with, not stuck, I think there's something about being with the characters in the world that for so long, and you start to like really feel a part of it, and then when it's over you almost like mourn them. I had the biggest book hangover after I read The Stand. Like, nothing I picked up compared. I have a stack of some more bigger books from Stephen King. Not as big as The Stand, but some big ones that I have not read. I think this book was also on Nick's list. I actually don't know much about this book, but apparently it's Stephen King's, like, he says it's his favorite book that he's written, and it's, is it Lisey's story? Lisey's story? What is this actually about? So this is about a woman, Lisey, who loses her husband, who was an award-winning best-selling novelist. And Lisey had to learn about him from books and blood and bulls. Later, he understood that there was a place Scott went, a place that both terrified and healed him, that could eat him alive or give him the ideas he needed in order to live. Now it's Lisey's turn, I really hope I'm pronouncing that right, turn to face Scott's demons. What begins as a widow's effort to sort through some papers of her celebrated husband becomes a near-fatal journey into the darkness he inhabited. Very intrigued with this one. When was this released? I feel like I kind of fell off reading a lot of Stephen King, his newer releases, as I was on my way to college, and I just stopped reading altogether until I got out of college. This 2006, so yeah, there's that big chunk of time where I just wasn't reading Stephen King releases. Next, I've actually seen this movie, and I love the movie. Mike Flanagan stan, right here. Dr. Sleep. This is the follow-up to The Shining. It just follows Danny into adulthood, and there's some other horrible characters and villain that is introduced. So this follows Danny into adulthood. He's kind of thrown away his life, kind of stepping into the footsteps of his dad, and heavy drinker, not very pleasant to be around, kind of just going through life, job to job. But he is still plagued by dreams and his gift of The Shining, but he comes across a 12-year-old girl who has a very strong Shining. But also in the background there's this horrible group, I think they're called the True Knot, who feed on their powers, The Shining. It's so horrible, they feed off of The Shining when they're being like tortured to death, or these kids have like true fears when they release this sustenance for them. The big bad postman. There are some scenes in the movie that were really hard to sit through in that regard, but I do really want to read this. I've heard the book is just as good or better than the movie. And I love The Shining. The book I know it's very different from the movie in some regards, but I still enjoy being in this type of universe. And the last one I would like to get to this year, which I've heard so many people recommend this one book to me. They're usually older Stephen King fans, like my dad's age. Bag of Bones. Oh, I just opened this because I got this at Goodwill. To Greg, February 14th, 1999. Happy Valentine's Day. Love Mom and Dad. Maybe he didn't like the book. A haunted love story. How quaint. It's almost February. Maybe I'll pick this up in February. Set in Maine. There we go. It's about another novelist. Bag of Bones recounts the plight of 40-year-old best-selling novelist Mike Noonan, who is unable to stop grieving even 4 years after the sudden death of his wife, Jo, and who can no longer bear to face the blank screen of his word processor. That name sounds so familiar. I know in Stephen King's universes, like, there's a lot of characters and names that come up multiple times. Where does that name come up from? Mike Noonan. He's plagued by vivid nightmares of the house by the lake. Despite these dreams, or perhaps because of them, Mike finally returns to Sarah Laughs, the Noonans' isolated summer home. And there's some stuff going on with the town and this powerful millionaire. And there's this widowed young mother. And it sounds like there's a mystery and a love story. So, I don't know. I think, we'll see. I have not heard anyone my age recommend this Stephen King book, and I'm in my 30s, so I'm intrigued. It's one of the bigger Stephen King books, so I think the premise sounds really interesting, so I'm excited to pick that up. I'm excited hopefully to read all of these this year. What is your favorite Stephen King book? Have you read any of the books I listed? Did you like them? Would you recommend them? I would love to know. What's your favorite Stephen King book? Currently mine is Pet Sematary. Like, in The Stand, like, almost knocked it off, but I don't know. I've read Pet Sematary probably the most out of all his work. I just want to say bye now. Thank you for clicking. Thank you for watching. And I'll have some more videos for you soon. Bye!